Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. Thanks for joining us again today. This is a video submission that was sent in by Marion. Marion lives in the UK, it seems, and she tells you here a little bit about her horse. This is him as a 3-year-old. She says it was an impulse buy. So she turned him out and decided to buy him. It looks like quite a good sort. Quite a big horse, obviously. But it looks like he had some good lineage there. Dad was quite light on his feet. Like the look of his father. Quite nice, quite nicely ridden there. So now we're going to actually get into the work here, and it sounds like she does a lot of work in hand. Now, I'm not sure if she's also has been lunging this horse at the same time. She doesn't really say anything about that, but she seems to spend a lot of time working the horse in hand in the traditional, British Horse Society, which is nothing but, good horsemanship advice. You see here she's walking alongside the shoulder of the horse. That's how we would like to see that happen. And she talks about how she works him from both sides, and that's a very good thing. I think today a lot of people don't spend really enough time with their horses. I see too many people who come and ride and hand the reins off, to someone else. And, I like to see people, especially if they only have one or two horses, that, they're certainly spending time with them themselves and grooming them and getting to know them. It's all part of developing a working partnership with the horse, is simply getting to know it. And you have to just learn to train your eyes so that every time you look at a horse, your eyes simply do a check over it. You know him so well, you know what's right, you know what's wrong. And that's very important, to get that hands-on kind of knowledge of your horse, which only is done if you spend some time with them. So once again, as I say, if you have 20 horses to ride a day, it's one thing, but if you don't, and especially if you've never done it. I mean, I certainly grew up, I wasn't allowed to ride till I grew my horse and took care of it. So we did all of that, as children. And while I don't have time to do a lot of that these days, I certainly cleaned my share of stalls and groomed my share of horses. And I like how she's just getting this horse used to her hands here. This is all good. It's just good basic work. She's getting him used to walking underneath things here. That's great. The only thing that I would like to see, and that I think is wrong with this picture, is that you're just not getting the horse to move out enough. You do that later on, but I would like to see that right from the start, because he's just kind of dragging himself along. You talk a little bit about how he's quite lazy, but so I'd like to see in your walk that you just get him really moving out a little more. I would be lunging this horse were I at this age. Maybe not every day, but certainly as part of his training to begin to build some strength in him. Now, he's obviously a very big horse, and one of the things with very big horses today, we see a lot of people in the United States buying big horses because they're big and they think the big horse is going to be able to carry them. Well, the problem with most of the big horse breeds, like the Friesians, they weren't really bred to carry weight. They were bred to be carriage horses. So when you begin to get on them, they actually have very long, weak backs. So very often these bigger size people buy them thinking that they're going to be good to carry them, and they don't do any conditioning work, and the horses end up swayback. In fact, almost every Friesian we run into is swayback for that very same reason. So big horses need even more conditioning across their top line, because they have their own weight themselves that they have to deal with. So never forget that. The bigger the horse doesn't mean he's that much stronger. It may mean, in fact, that he's that much weaker. Once again, as I said, it depends on their conformation, but that's why some of these heavier breeds can be very difficult to train. So once again, I like everything that I see her doing here. It's just that I would like to see the horse walking out. This is all correct work that she's doing here. No problem with any of this, but it's all so slow. I mean, we really need to get this horse swinging and active from behind. So yes, he's kind of stretching down, but that's a perfect example of how horses can stretch down and not be moving. That only just facilitates getting the horse over his back, but you've got to get him moving a little more actively now. And now she's going to do the same thing in reins, and once again, it's the same problem here. She's not really getting him moving actively enough in the things that she's doing. Though she's very right here about using the flash noseband, and that's quite correctly adjusted there. The way she has it, it's not tight. You can get a couple of fingers in there. And once again, I salute the USDF for finally coming around to some reasonableness on changing the rules so that people can't enter horse shows with their horses' mouths tied shut with these devices. And I recommend everybody, when you go to horse shows, be sure that the ring steward is doing that. Be sure they're following the rules. I think people in dressage have to become, those who care about the sport, not just degrading into a free-for-all of what anybody feels like doing abusively with horses, and that's kind of what we've been there should be no argument about things like the rollker. Anybody seeing it should immediately, understand that that's nothing a real horseman would ever do to a horse, and for various reasons. But this is all very good. I salute the British Horse Society. I spent 3 years in England myself, so I have lots of good friends there, and rode at a place called North Breach Manor while I was there, also at a beautiful estate in Epsom Downs. So had a lovely time while I was there. Shed my share of raindrops, as they say, out. So once again, now this is looking a little better in the walk here. I'd like to see him even, there you go, now she's getting into a trot. But what I see here is the problem is that you're not really able to keep up with him. He's barely trotting, and you look almost like you're a little limping there yourself. So I think my problem with what you're doing here is you're doing a great job of it, but you're not getting him into a big enough stride to really do this horse any good. If you're going to show a horse like that, you need to be matching their stride, long and active. So you need to be swinging your legs much, much more than that and getting him much more active. Now she's going to go into work in hand. Now, I really would like you to go and look at my videos that I've done on work in hand and how to do it correctly. What you're doing here is really just kind of making the horse yield. But once again, it's all happening so slowly, and so, he's just sort of dragging his legs over to the side. And, it's not the neck is now bent too far. Remember that you never want to bend the neck out of line with the spine when we train. It's one of the cardinal rules of classical work. And I want you to go and look at that. What you need to do is get the reins over the horse's head and work with the outside rein, because until you have an outside rein, you have no control over the outside line of the body. And what you're doing here is just simply twisting his neck around too far and kind of spinning him on his forehand, which isn't really doing him any good. It makes the horse kind of more on the forehand. So what I'd like to see you do more of, starting where you end in this tape, because of course I've watched this and I know what's coming, but now you're going to start doing some leg yields, and this is much better. This is where you should start, with the leg yield, and then when you can really get the horse swinging and active, then try to do a turn on the forehand on the spot. So you're starting where you ought to be ending instead of the other way around. So get him moving and active while this is much better, but you need to get the reins over the top of the horse's head so you can control the outside line. Once again, I did an extensive video on this that you can see on our site, so I really highly recommend you take a look at that. But this really looks like an eager to please horse, and you look like a lovely woman who's having a good time with this horse, and you have his best interests at heart. Well, which is one of the things that didn't surprise me at the last Olympics, that the British did so well, because they're real animal lovers. I learned when I lived there. There's some people who like showing, but they really don't like horses that much. They like ribbons more than the animals. Anyway, this has been Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and lovely start. I'd love to see this horse moving now, either on a lunge line at least, and beginning to do something, getting him more active. Hope that helps. Thank you.